Hello again. This is Satan's Trilogy, Book 1, Chapter 6, and this will be reading 47. I am the author and the narrator. Hope you enjoy it. Esther pulled a bowl that had a towel over it. Removing the towel, Day and Esther could see the pizza dough had raised. It takes about 6 hours for the yeast to raise in the dough. I have to work it a bit. Tossing the dough will help stretch it into our trays used for the pizza. Quickly working the pizza dough, Esther flattened the dough out into 2 equal discs. Day, have you tossed pizza dough before? Day watched Esther working the dough. No, never. I usually buy frozen pizzas. Esther went to the refrigerator. I have everything that we need right here. Esther had made the tomato sauce the night before, and it was ready to be spread over the pizza crust. This makes the best pizza. It's all part of a secret recipe that I promised never to divulge to anyone. Having ladled some tomato sauce onto the pizza crust, Esther was satisfied with her foundation for a great pizza. Okay, Day, here's your dough. Pick it up and start squeezing it from the center out. Work it as you turn the disc in a circle. Day had never tried to shape pizza dough before, and this was very unusual for her. Esther, it's very soft and it's losing its shape. Keep rotating the dough as you flattened it, said Esther. You're doing fine. Esther, it's getting pretty big, said Day, fearful of not knowing what to do next. All right, Day, let's toss the disc into the air, put a spin on it so that it will expand just a bit more. Day did as Esther asked, and amazingly, the dough spun a few feet into the air, expanded just a bit. Oh my gosh, I'm doing it, said Day as she excitedly watched the dough expand in the air. 3 tosses and Esther spoke up. Catch the dough and drop it to the sheet on the countertop. Excellent, said Esther as she pushed the small cup towards Day. Here's a basting brush with some olive oil in the cup. Brush the perimeter of the crust with the oil. You don't need to cover it all. Esther watched as Day quickly took the brush and applied the oil around the pizza crust. That is fantastic, Day, said Esther as she removed the cup of oil and pushed towards a small bowl of tomato sauce. Now you apply the tomato sauce. I made this last night with fresh tomatoes from Italy. In my opinion, you should never put too much tomato sauce on the pizza crust. Instead, treat it like a condiment on a hamburger. Apply just enough to enhance the flavors, not dominate them. Esther watched Day as she took the small ladle and applied the sauce around the center of the crust and spiraled it outwards. Day, you are natural. That looks fantastic. Removing the tomato sauce and pushing a half dozen more dishes towards Day, Esther said, now put on the ingredients that you want to enjoy. I prefer putting the cheese on and then topping it with other ingredients. I have 3 different cheeses here. You can choose any or all, but careful you don't end up with a cheese sandwich. It's easy to overdo the cheese. Day took a look at all of the ingredients and was excited beyond her expectations. Oh my, I'll use some of everything. I love olives, and onions are a must. Mushrooms are great too. I prefer sausage to pepperoni. They spread the ingredients onto The pizza crust then finally stopped. This is the perfect pizza that I have dreamed about for my entire life. They quickly looked at Esther. I am really hungry. How long do we bake them? Day was serious. Hunger had taken over and she was ready to enjoy the pizza she had just made. In 12 minutes, we'll watch through the glass door, and when the crust is golden, we'll pull them out. While talking, Esther grabbed the 2 pizzas and placed them in the oven. I am so fortunate to have this Wolf gas range. It has a very even temperature throughout the oven, so that our pizzas will bake at the same temperature. Esther was admiring the gas range, and Day thought to herself, how wonderful to be so passionate about something. At that moment, Aunt Brandy opened the front door and stepped inside. Hello, Esther. I am home. Brandy removed her coat and placed it in the closet. As she looked about the room, Esther and Day came around the corner and greeted Brandy. And Brandy, this is my sister, Day. Brandy closed the closet door and immediately walked to Day, smiling as she grabbed her with her arms and hugged her. Brandy made certain that her cheek touched Day's cheek. Day, I hope you realize that as Esther's sister, we are family. Esther has told me a lot about you and your dad. I consider myself your aunt. Esther loves having a sister, and I love the idea of having 2 nieces. Brandy held on to Day as she looked her over. Esther told me you like black. Well, the gothic look works for you. You are absolutely beautiful. Growing up, I had Esther's dad. It was wonderful having each other. Actually, I might have been a bit of a challenge for Adam, but he handled it well. Brandy paused for a moment, as if she was reliving a moment in time, smiling again at Day. You 2 are very lucky to have each other. Day was smiling, really smiling with a very big grin. Day then said to Aunt Brandy, Esther told me you were wonderful. Esther is so special. I shouldn't have worried. I just wanted you to like me. Day was being extremely sincere with Brandy. Brandy had not let go of Day, and still holding on to her arms, Brandy corrected Day. Oh no, Day, I don't like you, I love you. You are the sister of my niece, and while I may not understand how you 2 became sisters, understand that makes me an aunt one more time, and I love it. Brandy leaned forward and softly kissed Day's cheek. You should call me Aunt Brandy. I love the sound of that. I don't have the same insights to life as Esther has, so I trust Esther to lead in a true direction. Aunt Brandy was smiling at Day, pleased to have finally met Esther's sister and her new niece. Oh my, Brandy became distracted. What is that wonderful smell? We've made some pizzas, and they should be ready in just a few minutes. Do you want a slice before your date shows up? Esther asked. It smells so good, but I really shouldn't. Brandy appeared to be torn with her decision. Girls, I have to change and get ready. I'll try to be strong and say no, but we'll see. If Jacob is even 1 minute late, I'll have a slice. I think that's fair. I'll see you girls in a little bit. Brandy took off down the hallway, knowing she was under the clock. Preparing to go anywhere always took Brandy a long time, and tonight probably would be no exception. The oven alarm went off, and Esther went quickly to the kitchen to check on the pizzas. Looking through the glass on the oven's door, Esther said, maybe 2 more minutes. Dave was leaning by Esther's side and looking into the oven. The crust needs to bake just a little more, said Esther. They both stood back and watched the oven door. It was as if they were watching the pizzas finish cooking, but from where they stood, that would be impossible. More likely, it was the anticipation of the meal about to emerge from within the oven. It was the oven that had their focus. Esther grabbed a pot holder and opened the oven, removing her pizza first and then Dave's pizza. Esther commented, "They need to sit just a minute while the cheese and sauce cools down. Then we can cut them," said Esther. Having waited just a couple of minutes, Esther grabbed a pizza cutter and said, "I'll cut mine like a pie. I like the triangular shapes for eating pizza. Dave, you can cut your pizza any way you wish. Some people prefer rectangular strips of pizza." Dave quickly grabbed the pizza cutter as Esther finished with it and said, "Oh no, I like the pie-shaped pieces too. I think that is the best way to enjoy pizza." Each girl took a plate from the countertop by the oven and placed 2 pieces of pizza on their plate, then went to the table to eat. Esther had placed a pitcher of water on the table along with 2 iced glasses. "Today I don't drink soda pop, and neither does Aunt Brandy, so the only drink that I can offer you with the pizza is water, unless you would like some milk." "I have never cared for milk with pizza." Esther made a rather funny face, expressing her disgust with the thought of the 2 being consumed at once. They chuckled at Esther. "I don't mind water. However, I am a bit curious. You mean that you have never had any sodas?" "I've had a few sips of some cola drinks, but my training has taught me that water is the best liquid for the body. And while in France I had some wine, and in Germany I enjoyed some beers. The effect on my reaction time is huge. I only drink alcohol in countries where water is not available. The effects on my reaction timing is too great. That can be devastating under the wrong circumstances." Day seemed to understand. "Esther, what was your life like growing up?" Day waited for a response and propped her feet up and under her legs, ready to hear a story. Esther looked at Day and smiled. "My entire life, I have had a tremendous need to keep my mind busy. My dad understood this and saw to it that my mind was kept challenged. I was educated in all subject matters, and at my request I was given language instructors that helped me learn various languages without showing an accent. In my case, a Chinese accent." Esther felt a need to clarify what accent. "Because I seldom sleep more than 4 hours a night, I used time away from my studies to focus on my physical training. My father and I traveled a lot. We went to over 30 countries during the time we were together and lived in 6 of them for several months. This is one reason I am fluent in 6 languages. When you live in a country and you must speak the language, the challenges to speak the language seems to be far easier." Esther took the last bite of her first piece of pizza and followed it with some water. Day watched as her sister told her story of world travel and her fascinating life. As Esther finished that last bite, Day proclaimed, "Esther, your training in martial arts appears to be at a very high level." Smiling at Day, Esther said, "I think every father worries about his little girl and perhaps someone taking advantage of her. My father was no different. Since my mind craved new challenges, Dad saw to it that I was not only physically fit, but had me trained by masters of self-defense. I have trained my entire life in martial arts, and have trained under 5 separate schools. I lived in convents, barracks, and monasteries. My self-defense training has been by old-school monks that were amazed by my quickness." Day was thoroughly enthralled with Esther's response. but I had to interrupt and ask what she meant by her quickness. Well, at 5 years old, my father had me with him during a search and reconnaissance mission. We entered a village in southern China that had been burned to the ground by bandits. Left alone for a few minutes, I found an old monk at the side of a road. He had been shot several times. I remember his eyes. He had so much knowledge in his eyes. Smiling, he reached out to me. At such a young age, I knew that I could trust him. I told him my father would come and help him. But even at my young age, I knew he was dying. Kneeling at his side, I smiled at him and tried to comfort him. A bandit that had trailed behind suddenly came running towards us. I pulled a knife from a sheath on the monk's waist and threw it hard in the direction of the bandit. The knife landed on its target and the bandit fell dead. The monk's voice was weak. "How did you know the knife would stop this man?" I answered him, "It was the air that delivered the knife to his throat, not me." As I took his hand to comfort him, he spoke to me. "Little girl, I see a warrior in you. Do you know what chi is?" I nodded yes to him. He smiled and said, "When I die, my chi will be yours. It's my gift to you for comforting me." He was losing his voice, but said, "This gift is many generations old." The old man died, and for the only time in my life I shed a tear. My tear fell onto his face, and as I tried to clean his face, his chi enveloped my body. He had the most wonderful expression that I had ever known. Perhaps it is, as they say, your greatest understanding of life is just before death. My father appeared behind me and said, "Esther, this is Z.U. He fought the bandits while the villagers escaped. He saved many lives. He is a hero. It was kind of you to comfort him." I moved Z.U.'s hand to his chest, and as I let go of his hand, a spark moved from his hand to mine. I now had Z.U.'s chi. As a young child, I was always perceptive to the world around me, but suddenly my senses were heightened at least sixfold, and my quickness was unmatched from that day forward. The old man saw a warrior in a little girl, and he gave me the tools to be that warrior. Such a gift is truly magnificent and humbling. Day quickly asked, "What did your father say when you told him?" Esther paused for a moment, as if recalling a moment in time, then responded, "My father was a wonderful man and a great soldier, but he was from the West and would not have understood or believed the gift." Esther smiled, then said, "I did not tell him." Esther took a bite of her second piece of pizza. "Day, you are my sister, and I'll share with you things that I cannot or dare not tell others." Day studied Esther's expression and was pleased. "Esther, my mother made my father promise not to teach me martial arts. He is a master of Hapkido. I think he regrets that promise, but chooses to keep his word to the memory of my mother. I think that he would let you teach me." They became excited. "Esther, he'll not break his word, and yet he'll now find comfort in knowing someday I might be able to defend myself against an aggressor. Would you do this for me?" They watched Esther's eyes to see if she could read them. At that moment, the doorbell rang. "That must be Aunt Brandy's date. Come on, Dave, let's welcome him. We'll discuss this later." Esther jumped up from the table and quickly went to the front door. Turning to Dave, making certain she was ready, Esther first checked the peephole and then opened the door. Esther quickly greeted him. "Dr. Song, it is so nice to see you again. Please come in." Dr. Song stepped into the doorway and quickly spoke to Esther. "Esther, it is wonderful to see you again." He stepped forward and gave Esther a hug. "And who is your friend?" Esther stepped next to Day and put her arm around Day's waist. "Dr. Song, I would like you to meet my sister, Day Ho." Esther was beaming with pride. "Day, it is a pleasure to meet you. Brandy told me that Esther now had a sister. I think that is absolutely wonderful. When I was very young, my best friend lived next door, and we were like brothers. We were inseparable. I was an only child, and so he seemed like a brother to me, the only brother I have ever known. We had so much in common. It's a very good thing to have a brother or sister." Brandy suddenly entered the room and was pleased to see Dr. Song. "Oh, Jacob, you're on time. And I see you've been visiting with Esther and Day." Jacob turned to see Brandy, and she looked beautiful. "Wow," was the first words out of his mouth, and then he continued after being stunned by how attractive Brandy looked. "Of course I'm on time. I'm sort of on probation, and I really don't want to mess up. And by the way, you look fantastic." Brandy liked the compliment and appreciated Jacob's straightforward honesty about arriving on time. "Should we go?" asked Brandy. "I thought we'd do a movie tonight. It's a love story about a young man having to win back his fiancée's love after a car accident gives her amnesia. They're calling this a chick flick, but really it sounds like a movie I'd enjoy. But it doesn't start for an hour." Jacob was explaining the time issue with Brandy, and then switched the subject. "What is the wonderful smell in your house? It smells like pizza." Jacob was looking towards the kitchen with a great deal of interest. Brandy glanced into the kitchen and saw there was a lot of pizza left, so commented, "Jacob, the girls made some pizza tonight. Perhaps they wouldn't mind sharing a couple of pieces with us before we leave." Esther became excited. "Oh, that would be wonderful. I love sharing food with others." "Day, what do you think?" asked Esther. "Are you kidding? We have enough pizza here to feed a small party. But I want you both to try a piece from the pizza I created. I think it is the best I've ever had." Jacob laughed and said, "That sounds like the best invitation I've had for a long time." Turning to Brandy, Jacob said, "Brandy, let's check this pizza out." Everyone made their way to the kitchen where Esther and Day had left the large pizzas after taking a couple of pieces. "That is beautiful," said Jacob. "You two really know the toppings that I like." Brandy took one look and immediately grabbed a plate and started to help herself. "Esther, everything you have made since you've arrived has been fantastic. And I love your breakfast meals. Pizza is my weakness. If I could have just one food the rest of my life, it would be pizza, and most likely this pizza." Brandy's eyes grew as she watched the cheese pull apart as she pulled a piece from the sliced pizza. Everyone sat down and enjoyed their pizza. "Oh my, Brandy, I understand what you mean now. This is absolutely wonderful. Esther, how and why does this pizza taste so good?" Dr. Song seemed genuinely in need of the answer. Esther was feeling really good. "My father and I had a great friend from Italy. He taught me that fresh ingredients and tomatoes from Italy are key ingredients, and at least 3 different cheeses are needed for great pizza. Dave's father sells all of the fresh ingredients needed to make a great pizza. At least that's the way I see it. Esther smiled and took another bite of her slice of pizza. My father and I visited Italy once for a short time, and the olives won me over. I swore that they would always be included on any pizza that I baked. Or I should say, any pizza that I baked for myself. Esther, this is so wonderful, but I do enjoy pizza so much more with a beer. Aunt Brandy was almost sorrowful. She felt the meal incomplete. Esther looked at her aunt and spoke up. Well, Aunt Brandy, remember last Wednesday when I had some groceries delivered and you signed for them? Part of that delivery was your favorite beer, Miller Lite, in the long neck bottle. So if you think it is wise to have a beer, then there's some in the refrigerator. Brandy looked at Jacob, and with pleading eyes she asked, Jacob, would you mind if I had a beer with just one more piece of pizza? Jacob looked at Brandy and said, perhaps this night will be slightly different than I had anticipated, but spending it with you was basically what I had looked forward to for several days. If you want, we can have several beers and pizza. Whatever makes you happy. Well, that was chapter 6, reading 47. Hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, take care and be safe.